Hi guys, this is Miss Navi, and I'm just here to chat about my favorite jobs in Final Fantasy. It's in a top 10 format, because honestly I can't really order it past 10. This is by no means based on how good they are, especially since how good a job is relative to the context around it, be it the game or even a specific boss. I might partially like a job for how good it is in a given context, but most of all, it'll be based on how fun they are to me and how much I vibe with the aesthetic. To be clear, this video's target audience is just my friends, but if you're just strolling by, then hello and thank you for watching. And please tell me your favorite Final Fantasy jobs in the comments. To kick off the list, we have Thief. Sorry, I mean Treasure Hunter. They first appear in the very first Final Fantasy game and have been a staple job since. When one thinks of a thief, the sneaky types are the first to come to mind usually. But thieves in Final Fantasy lean more towards being charismatic and virtuous, especially in characters like Locke and Zidane. While yes, Edge and Riku are both thieves in a sense, they both have another job as their predominant identity. So, what do thieves do? Well, obviously they steal. Stealing can be difficult, though, oftentimes being unlikely to succeed unless you have some sort of odds-increasing accessory. But there are still those jobs you may desperately want, or even need, and that's when the thieves shine their brightest. They may require having prerequisite knowledge of what enemies have those items, but thieves will gladly swipe them for you if you know where to look. It was inevitable that we talk about Final Fantasy XIV in this list, so let's do that. The fourth expansion, Endwalker, introduced us to the job of Reaper. As some background, Garleans long ago were forced to the icy north to fill Savard. Unable to use magic, farmers would use their scythes to fight. But that wasn't all. They would make pacts with Voidsent, souls from another world that was destroyed by darkness. With the rise of Magitech and Garlemald, Reapers lost their use to the Empire, but some still exist to this day, such as Drusilla, who passes her knowledge on to the Warrior of Light. As to how it plays, well, it's a job in Final Fantasy XIV, so it largely adheres to a 2-minute based rotation. As you attack, you build up your soul gauge, of which you spend 50 to have your Voidsent avatar do an attack that fills your shroud gauge by 10. Once you hit 50 shroud gauge, you can spend it on Enshroud, letting your avatar possess your body to do a lot of powerful and fast attacks for a brief time, finishing it all up with the hard-hitting attack, Communio. If you're good enough, you can even fit 2 Enshrouds into the 20-second window that is your raid buff. I can't say I play it terribly often, but when I do, I have a lot of fun, especially with managing my 2 gauges to ensure that I have enough to do the aforementioned double Enshroud every 2 minutes. Between their dark magics and black armor, the Dark Knight is often seen as an evil, no-good kind. However, while it's understandable to think that way, I think it's a misconception. Dark Knights, while very intimidating, are self-sacrificing heroes who will fight with love in their hearts. The first Dark Knight was Leon in Final Fantasy II, who is harsh but cares deeply for his sister. Leon's distinguishing ability is that he's not only a physical attacker, but he can use black magic very effectively as well. In Final Fantasy IV was where the identity of a Dark Knight was solidified. Our hero, Cecil Harvey, took the role of a Dark Knight. His main ability was to drain away his own HP to attack with darkness. Notably, in the 3D versions, it actually powered up his attacks temporarily, as opposed to the multi-target attacks of the 2D version. But at the end of the day, Cecil was not afraid to sacrifice his own health in order to fight for others, be it for his love, Rosa, or to protect an innocent child. The Dragoon, debuting in Final Fantasy II with Rickard, has pierced its way into our hearts with its lance and its numerous appearances. Kain Highwind from Final Fantasy IV was the first to really put Dragoon in the spotlight, with his brooding personality, strong jumping abilities, and making the player think he could betray them at any time. Since Final Fantasy III, jumping became the forefront of Dragoon's abilities, where the user becomes temporarily untargetable and then lands on an enemy for devastating damage. In Final Fantasy IX, we meet Freya Crescent, the dauntless Dragoon of Burmecia, who knows not only the loss of her love, but of her people as well. She is a peerless fighter who, with the power of Final Fantasy IX's new trance mechanic, can stay in the air, becoming totally invincible for the duration of her trance, and rain down spears upon her enemies all the while. So have you ever wanted to... Yeah, that. Well, with Time Mage, you can do just that. Speed adjusting spells may have been in Final Fantasy since the very first one, but Time Mage was the embodiment of these spells. Time Mage is not a very common job in the series, being introduced in 5 and appearing very few times after. However, it's one of the tippy-top best jobs in Final Fantasy V, as not only are haste and slow universally super strong, but they also gain access to some offensive spells like Gravity, Comet, and Meteor. Comet and Meteor put you at the whims of the mercy of RNG, as there is a significant amount of variance in their damage, the latter hitting several times. It also has some more obscure spells, such as Return, to start a battle over, and Quick, to let yourself act twice in one turn. While Tidus is some form of sword fighter first and foremost, I think he's worth mentioning, as he's the closest we have to a party member being an actual time mage. Rosa may also have some, but she leans way more into the white mage identity. I'd also like to draw attention to Astrologian in Final Fantasy XIV. While it's not a time mage at its core, it definitely does have some aspects of time mage to it. As a healer, it has multiple abilities with a delayed heal on them. Exaltation gives 8 seconds of 10% less damage taken, with a heal once it expires. Macrocosmos tallies up the total damage each party member individually takes for a set period of time, and then restores half of that amount once again individually. And there's even more. So while it may not be a time mage in name, its roots definitely stemmed from the time mage. At last, we reach my main job in Final Fantasy XIV, the Samurai. If you know me, you probably know that my favorite class in Fire Emblem is the Swordmaster. Like the Swordmaster, Samurai tend to land critical hits a lot, but unlike them, Samurai is consistent at dishing out huge amounts of damage overall in every game they're in. First introduced in Final Fantasy V, Samurai wielded katanas, the only weapon type that could land critical hits. They could deal plenty of damage with Zeninage, otherwise known as Giltos, or even instantly kill enemies with the Ainuki. Cyan Garamond was the first character officially designated as a samurai, a noble soldier whose wife and son's lives were claimed by Kefka. He specialized in Bushido, sword skills that required time to charge up. This idea of charging up attacks would carry over into Final Fantasy XIV, where Samurai's whole identity is doing many light and fast attacks to build up a very powerful attack with a cast time. And on the note of MMOs, like in Final Fantasy XIV, Samurai is also one of the best damage dealers in Final Fantasy XI. Also, a minor thing about them is that they tend to have pretty good defenses too, with abilities such as Shira Hidori, Third Eye, and Tengensu. Mystic Knight, Rune Knight, Rune Fencer, Spell Fencer, whatever you want to call it. These swordsmen are able to imbue their blades with elemental magic and target enemy weaknesses with just their regular attacks. While not the first magical knight type job, being predated by what we English speakers know as Dark Knight in Final Fantasy III, despite the original iteration not leaning into darkness or magical swords. Mystic Knight as how we know it today was first in Final Fantasy V. They would spend MP to imbue their sword with a myriad of spells, including your basic elemental spells and things like Drain or status ailments. In fact, the status ailment ones could even bypass status immunities on bosses, which is to say that there are some bosses you could instantly kill with Breakblade. Not to mention, exploiting an enemy's weakness with an Aga spellblade would instantly kill a regular enemy. In Final Fantasy VI, Sella's share diverges from this a bit, as her ability Runic is to instead absorb the next spell cast as MP. Final Fantasy XI introduced Rune Fencer into its array of jobs in the Seekers of Adoulin expansion, and it became one of the most important jobs in the meta as a tank, with its heavy magic mitigating skills and elemental resistances depending on which element of rune you have active. It's worth noting that Mystic Knight also appeared in Bravely Default as Spell Fencer, functioning the same way as it did in Final Fantasy V. So, here we have one of the more unusual jobs in Final Fantasy, the Geomancer. Debuting in Final Fantasy III and wielding a strange weapon type in that of bells. These masters of the environment can bring forth different effects based on what terrain they're on. There's not a huge amount to say about them, other than that the outfit looks super cozy. They reappeared in Final Fantasy V with a wider arrangement of effects, but still the same job at its core, just without the backfiring. And just like with Mystic Knight, they are in Final Fantasy XI, also introduced in the Seekers of Alduin expansion, and also at the top of the meta. They function as a supportive damage dealer with powerful buffing and enfeebling magic. Additionally, they can summon a Luopon to have certain effects emit from it. However, the Luopon can also take damage to be defeated. Mixing things up next with the Chemist. Chemist is one of, if not the best job in Final Fantasy V, the game it initially appeared in. Using Chemist to its fullest potential is a bit of a knowledge test, but there are plenty of charts online. I personally use the one from Mega64.net. So what does Chemist do? Well, it can drink tonics to increase stats for one, but better yet, it can use Mix. Mix lets you pick 2 items, and gives you a different effect based on which items you chose. There are all sorts of beneficial effects, from Dragon Power to increase your level by 20, or to Kiss of Blessing to give you Berserk Haste and Blink all in one package deal. There's also some offensive uses too, like Succubus Kiss, which drains an obscene amount of HP from the enemy, or Dark Sai inflicting both Blind and Charm on an enemy. Its sheer utility and versatility is something special, and if I covered everything it could do, we'd be here all day, so I'll just leave it at that. I mentioned Riku earlier in the Thief section, but like most Final Fantasy X characters, she represents 2 jobs, doubling as a chemist. Her overdrive ability is Mix, which works similarly to how it does in Final Fantasy V. Also, fun fact, this job breaks the Geneva Conventions by having a red cross appear in one of its abilities. This was obviously changed in the Pixel remaster. Only after overcoming many ordeals and facing the darkness in your heart can one become a paladin. Paladins are a step above the average knight. While they also employ the ability to cover other party members and take damage in their place, what makes them special is their ability to wield white magic. Depending on the iteration, their magic can range from light healing to the powerful holy spell to raining blades of light down from the skies. The first paladin was Cecil Harvey from Final Fantasy IV. After being stripped of his title, separated from his allies, facing his past, and overcoming his dark side, Cecil cast away the life-draining shackles of the Way of the Dark Knight, and achieved the highest honor in that of the Paladin. It was only after embracing the light that Cecil could unlock his true potential. While his healing magic is relatively low level, it can be boosted with certain equipment. He still manages to deal lots of damage though, and will even automatically cover party members with low HP from physical damage without even having to select the command, regardless of whether or not the blow will deal mortal damage to him. Chivalrous to the end. Paladin's next appearance was Beatrix in Final Fantasy IX. She was a knight of Alexandria with the utmost loyalty to Queen Bran, despite the Queen's questionable moral integrity. She even goes as far as to lead an attack on Freya's home of Bermesia, as well as clashing with Zidane's party against Princess Garnet's wishes. While she has white magic, she's generally more offensively built, with attacking moves like Stockbreak and Clim Hazard. Both of the Final Fantasy MMOs also have Paladin, acting as a tank in both. They both have impeccable defenses, albeit more physically aligned in Final Fantasy XI, and access to healing magic, heavy mitigation, and sustain. Paladins are kind of an all-in-one package, really. They do damage, they defend, and they heal. Plus, the Holy Knight aesthetic has always appealed to me. Honestly, I can't see a world where any other job overtakes it as my favorite. And that's all. Final Fantasy jobs have always been an interesting topic to me, so I'm glad to have discussed it here. I think Final Fantasy V in particular has the best job system to me. There's just such variance in what jobs can do. There's a reason that's the go-to game for challenge runs. And with that, I thank you for having watched this far. Please take care of yourself and be kind to each other. Bye bye!